Good evening, viewers out there in viewing land there. Welcome to the Tales from the Lambing Sheds 2023. And by the wonders of modern technology, we're managing to come live from the lambing sheds, or possibly the farm kitchens, in a couple of places in Scotland. And I will say that the seminar should run for round about 45 minutes, followed by questions and answers for a 15-minute session. So do get those questions and send them in. I'm sure you know how to send those questions in through the Zoom application, and some of those will be picked up by our colleagues on there. Also, we'll be joined by Jill Hunter for that questions and answers session. And Jill, of course, is the Harbro beef and sheep nutritionalist specialist. And so welcome to the podcast. On your screen there at the top, we've got Robert Laird as the pedigree and commercial sheep breeder, sheep farmer, well-known Texel sheep breeder from down there in Biggar. And the Cambwell flock have been going for somewhere in the region of 50 years. And Robert also runs commercial cattle and some pedigree cattle as well. Robert, welcome.
Hi, Andy. You well?
Good, thanks. Nice to see you. And we have also with us, we've got Finlay McIntyre, and Finlay is the farm manager from Dunalastair Estate in Kinloch Rannoch there, a little bit higher country there where it's a bit windier and wettier there. Welcome, Finlay.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here in your esteemed company, and looking forward to it.
Okay, well, we'll move straight on because time is quite short. So let's just start with the sheep. We're looking at breed selection, and breed selection is a very wide-ranging subject that we obviously couldn't cover all of it, and different breeds suit different areas and different systems. And Finlay, you'd mainly lamb outside slightly later, I guess, so the blackie maybe is the backbone of your breeding outfit.
That is correct, Andy. We run about we run roughly about, the business is split over two sides of the glen. On the south side it's Crossmount, which is about 900 blackface ewes, and on the other side there's Dunalastair, which is 1500 blackface ewes and about 300 Cheviots, with 45-50 of them pure Cheviots. So we lamb everything outside, and we start at the end of April, beginning of May. And that's the blackie is the backbone of our sheep enterprise. Yep.
You start there when the weather improves, unlike Robert, who'll be starting in a week or two. And Robert, of course, you actually, for a Texel breeder, you're be on higher ground than a lot of Texel breeders would be, and you run your Texels, quite commercially. I know I've been there and seen them, and some harder ground than maybe some of the Texel breeders run. But so would that make you look for a hardier type of Texel than maybe somebody that's breeding one down on the low ground?
Oh, absolutely, Andy. Most farms have got their sheep enterprises to suit the climate and to suit the kind of soil you've got. And we're very light soil, and we don't hold many trace elements. But we certainly try to breed a Texel, certainly that's got easy fleshing and as much fat on it as possible. Years ago, we were kind of encouraged by the powers that be to take the fat off our breeds. The Suffolk and the Charlie and the Texels were all treated the same, but the Texel was a naturally leaner breed, so we've kind of seen sense now, and I think most breeders understand the importance of breeding an easier flesh sheep, and it rings through in the ewes as well. A ewe that carries our condition longer is going to live longer. It's a no-brainer, really.
Longevity, of course, is important.
Yeah.
And I suppose we'll stay with you, Robert. Their top selection, obviously, in the pedigree world, the top selection is all about buying the right top to suit the market to breed the lambs for the top end. But I mean, your top selection as well, it comes down to some very fine margins. But still, likewise, you need tops from somewhere else that will produce a bit more longevity to you. Well,
absolutely, but you've got to bear in mind that Texels have a very strict no dressing rule, and so for a start, you have to breed a sheep that's got a tight skin. And that's worth a lot, because what you see is what you get with a Texel. And the commercial man, we've benefited for the commercial man just for that reason. But there's Texels on some far better ground than we've got, and Texels on far poorer ground than we've got. So you just have to feed accordingly and hopefully breed for the market. We try and breed for commercial, for pedigree top lamb trade, and if the ewe isn't going to produce a Lanark lamb, she'll maybe produce a very good shearling, £1,000 shearling for Kelso. Got to kill. There's no point in going all whole hog for one route. You've got to be in the middle somewhere.
Sure, and a lot of people do that. Well, there are one or two people that do just breed for the pedigree market and kill the rest. But yes, I know some of yours go back into your commercial section afterwards. And Finlay, sheep out there on the hill. Obviously, the tops are going to go out there and work on the hill, I guess, in the back end of the year there, or recently, really. So you'll be a different type of top. What kind of tops are you putting up there with the blackies?
Correct. We just lifted the tups there last week, so they go out on the last days of November and beginning of December. And I would share Robert's sentiment there. For us, skin is very important. We try and breed a good bare skin. We don't want it to be too kempy, saying that, but a good bare wool. And we try and generally when I'm buying tups, I kind of look to breed what the female line it's going to leave behind it. For a hill situation, that's kind of where we are. We make a wee bit of money selling suckler skimmers, and that's important to us. And the weather's important. It's got to have a good carcass, but if the ow's not right, you'll not have a weather either. So very much maternally focused here. So that's what we look for in our tups: a good skin, a good mouth, and something that's going to be a bit scouthy and leave a good yow line,
Obviously, you're putting blackie tups out there to breed more blackies there, but do you put other breeds of tups out there on those blackies as well for your fat lamb trade?
We tend not to at the moment. When I first came back to Rannoch and Dunalastair, the really I didn't think was enough yows to warrant crossing. So trying to build up a nucleus flock again. I'm not saying we'll no eventually cross again. We'll work a cheviot over some of the bottom end of the yows, but we even stopped doing that because they were neither a cheviot nor a blackie lamb. It didn't really give as much benefit. So really we're just focusing on trying to buy better tups that our pocket can manage and bring the standard of the yow to a quality where we'll be happy with her, and then we can start looking at crossing some of them. We're on, as I say, we're on about 300 cheviets, and I think probably we'll look to a Texel there in a couple of years' time because yep.
There you go, Robert. You leave your phone number at the end of the podcast there. And
hoping for a good deal.
and can I just ask the viewers out there that if you do put questions that you want to go forward to in the Q&A section, to put them in the Q&A section on the at the bottom of your screen. They're not in the chat section because I think that Emma in the background there is getting a wee bit confused with that. And so let's just move on then. You guys, different types of sheep. Diversity is the whole thing about farming across Scotland, about farming across the UK, really. And Robert, you'll be there on, although it's on an LFA land there, you'll be obviously lambing those a lot earlier, as we said, in the next week or two, and that involves putting them in the house, doesn't it? So that comes with, housing sheep comes with its upsides, but a lot of downsides as well, pitfalls.
Well, certainly when you're lambing pedigree animals, they're higher value, so you have to be on it really. And we've got a pretty good setup here. We managed to get ourselves one of those cameras that can zoom right in, and we've got them all synchronized over a fairly short period. We do a bit of laparoscopic and cervical AI. And obviously we have got them scanned, so we'll put them in their different batches, and we've been feeding accordingly depending on their scanning for the last 6 weeks really. So our commercials don't start till the 10th of April, and we do the same with them. We can hopefully lamb the twins outside and just lamb the singles and the triplets inside for ease of management as well.
Okay. And what kind of numbers are we talking of your pedigree flock, Robert, just to keep it up to date?
We'd probably have in the region of about 80 pedigree ewes, and we do a bit of flushing as well. So some of the older good breeding ewes, we try and get more daughters of them. It's the main thing, but it's not my mainstay. Flushing is a bit of a sideline really, but yeah,
we're not a sideline and a channel we're probably not going down on this podcast for a number of reasons. And Finlay, you're, I wouldn't say the opposite, but I mean, as you intimated earlier on, you lamb it when the weather gets better and all outside on the hill, different type of challenges, I guess, sort of lambing outside, especially when the weather's coming up against you.
Well, I was going to say we do try and get the weather right, but some years I don't think God gets the memo, So we've there's a lot of the guys used to talk about the Gab of May, and we've been hit with that a few times before, and when you've had great weather in April. But I think generally for us, we work, the system relies on the yow very much to do it for ourselves with a wee bit of kindness. So even by that time, there's not a lot of growth here, but there is a start, and that gives her the wee start just to just to get on, and even a wee bit of snow melt, you can start rising up into the heather and, you know, get a bit of roughage through that too. So yep.
And your sheep are obviously by nature an easy care sheep, but you still do need labour and people about, and you've got a lot of sheep about there. What kind of numbers of labour does it take to look after that? Do they all get seen every day or twice a day during that time?
Well, yeah, I mean, they are easier care, but it's not no care. So
No.
we do rely, you know, we've got on the farm itself, we've got myself and two other guys, a shepherd and a cattleman, and he looked at the cattleman looked after a Herschel as well, and we've just started another chap on, so that's us up to 4 full time here, and we rely very much on contracting staff. But the ewes out the hill, a lot of the singles lamb out the hill, and really, to be honest, if you've got the nutrition right and you've done your homework and stockmanship right, I think if she can't do it herself, sometimes it's better that she doesn't come in with a lamb, and you notice them at the clipping, and we deal with them accordingly, like, you know. So that's the kind of way we have to go. And to be honest, out in the hill, there's predation will be more our biggest issue than actual the yow failing us, like, you know, on burn, things like that, like, you know. Yeah.
But there obviously is a cost to the labour bringing it in, and Robert, hey, you're bringing additional labour mainly from your family. I think all your family roll the sleeves up round about lambing time and get stuck in there.
For sure. But our commercial flock, we actually tag all their ewe lambs at birth, so that's quite a labour intensive operation in itself. But I've got records for the last sort of 12 years of my commercial flock, so if there's a problem crops up in a line or a family, I can identify it and just try and pull it out, so that we're breeding a commercial sheep that's got longevity as well as a pedigree sheep, you know.
And do you record lambing difficulty amongst your sheep from those tags? Is that something you get in the record?
To be perfectly honest, I don't. It's one thing I don't really bother about, because if you've got something coming backwards, you need to help it anyway. So, you know, if I thought there was a trend with tups leaving larger lambs, fair enough. But, you know, if you're lambing very plain sheep, they will lamb themselves. But if you're trying to breed better quality sheep with some shape, you know yourself, you might have to intervene occasionally. Like.
Sure, and that's the difference, I suppose, between the two of you there. Although you're both after quality, that you are, that bit extra shape does take a little bit extra work. And let's just look at the scanning this year. I don't think either of you guys scanned your commercial flocks. I mean, Robert, you'll have scanned your pedigrees, but the scanning is an important tool now, isn't it, amongst the farming industry? And it's an expense, and you've got to get them all in. But to you guys, that scanning is essential, isn't it? Finlay, you'll scan all your flock and know exactly what they're having.
Yeah, I would say, to be quite honest, it's probably one of the most useful tools in our armament for managing our ewes. Like, you know, we're very extensive, and a lot of our in-buy is pretty marginal, but we can use it to our benefit if we know what's having twins. And so yeah, we certainly use the scanning, and our ewes scan depending on the Herschel. Last year they were just struggling a wee bit, and I'm not just sure why, but usually they scan anywhere from 115 up to early 140s, depending on the Herschel. Like, you know, we've got the two sides of the glen here, so there's one side on the south side which doesn't get much sun in the winter, and these ewes are always a wee bit behind. But for us, I'm not looking for a lot of twins. If I could get every ewe to have one lamb in the hill, that would be magic for me. Like, but often we'll generally end up with too many twins and too many empties. But we're generally around empty ewes here, touch wood, are below 5%. So you know, yeah.
And Robert, obviously, we said scanning is an important tool. How soon for your commercial flock do you start separating out the singles and the twins? Is that pretty much straight away, so you can start feeding them immediately?
We've actually, when we fluke the ewes in the middle of January, I just put my hand in anything, because they've all got colour-coded tags. I can pull out anything that's obviously older. So I'm quite happy to keep a ewe that's 7-8 year old if she's got correct mouth and teeth, and looks like she's going to hold her flesh. So they're already pulled out at the moment, and then when they come out the scanning crate, I'll just shed all the triplets and quads all off to one side, and the yellow ones, and I'll go back through them later. And if the yellow ones are for killing, I'll put them separate as well afterwards. But you know, the cost of feeding the way it is, there's no point in feeding a yell sheep, or so I think scanning it's false economy, not scanning. It really is.
And what sort of chance do you give a yelled ewe, an empty ewe? Obviously, she's empty 1 year. Does she go back and she looks like she's a breeder? Did she go back in? How many chances do you give her, or is she out the door straight away?
Well, I would forgive a gimmer, and we always take a note of all the gimmers that haven't held the first year, and then if the second year, near enough 100% of the time, she'll take it up the next year. Okay. So it all depends on the ground that they're getting tucked on as well. But we generally to lamb the 10th of April, we generally do slightly more triplets than singles when we scan, and a few more quads as well, half a dozen quads or something like that as well. But,
so you're looking at a much higher lambing percentage than that Finn is looking at.
We're quite a unique system here. We don't have any blue-faced Leicester blood at all, and we've run a closed flock, so we've been dabbling with various sires over the years, and we had Texel Blackies. Blackies were the mainstay of our commercial enterprise, and then we were steadily getting them purer and purer, crossing them with the Texel, and you get a fantastic lamb, but we didn't find that we were getting enough lambs for the kind of land we had, so we dabbled with a wee bit of Clun Forest across the Texel Blackie, or the ones that are like 7/8 Texel, and that was a really good ewe. She held her flesh well, and the Clun's a very easy fleshing type of breed, and live forever. Last year I had 2 years ago I had an 8-year-old ewe managed to rear triplets, Clun Forest cross Texel, and she had last year she had triplets, and I took one off her, but she reared 2 as a 9-year-old. So that's what we're aiming for, really, is that kind of hardiness. But so in 2012, I was judging in Southern Ireland, and I came across a breed called the Bell Player, and they've got this prolificity gene in them. So I got a hold of some of those tups, and I put them across the Clun Forest crosses, and all the daughters of them immediately lambed as twins or triplets, and very few singles. So I crossed them with a New Zealand Suffolk, and then I'm starting again with the Texel back across the Suffolk. So just doing it in a cycle.
I hope you're all taking notes out of them, because I've got a diagram going down here, and it's getting a few lines going backwards and forwards there. But yeah, as you said, each breed suits a different system, and of course, pre-lambing, once you have got those parted there, it's hugely important, isn't it? The nutritional side of it, and
absolutely.
What usual Finlay sort of way? What usual products do you should be looking towards to put out with those lambs once you separate them out?
Well, we introduced the forage booster buckets to the ewes from depending on the year, but generally just kind of mid-November. We'll introduce them to the ewes, and we continue with them right the way through. And at scanning, we obviously we have a no policy in yelled ewes as well. We just sell all the yelled ewes off the place, and the singles stay on the forage booster, and they stay in the forage booster blocks until about maybe, depending on the year, it's all dependent, but generally till about maybe the beginning of April, and then we kind of take them off the blocks a wee bit just to almost bear them up a wee bit on the hill, and we keep the buckets to them. And the twin ewes, we switch them to the Vitality after scanning, and they get the Vitality blocks as well. And we just they're ad lib to them all the way through until they tell me they don't want them anymore. Generally, I'll go out and they're not really going them, and I'll just no bother putting out. But like I say, we use the forage booster right the way through, and booster block and bucket. We'd usually introduce the blocks in the new year, the feed blocks, but the buckets are from mid-November, and yeah.
Okay, and Robert, you'll be we're talking a lot more lambs there, so you're talking more input as well there. So you'll be feeding everything but the singles pretty much from the scanning time, would you?
Yeah, well, we'll give everything free access minerals, topping time, and then as I say, once we've scanned, the triplets will be separated regardless how fit they are. I'll separate them and try and keep them in the flatter fields. There's less chance of prolapses, and then just start giving them a small quantity of rolls, like the rolls in the snacker. It's a simple way of operating, and my pedigrees, I give them the nuts because we're feeding them in troughs in the sheds. So when they go outside, they're back onto the snacker.
Okay. And we're going post lambing now. Obviously, as you said, with the pedigrees, the creep will come in as soon as they're able to take that in. And that'll what you put in the creep these days, was that a secret?
No, we tend to work with the Harbro. 18% creep pellet. It's a very clean product. It's got decox in it, which we need, and they seem to get started on it pretty good as well. It's a really nice smell, and I know a lot of guys around about here, they maybe don't buy any other products for Harbro, but they definitely buy those pellets, like, you know, we need to use products that's got vitamin B1 in them, and these products all have the highest in the market.
Harbro, certainly where they came from, wasn't it? With feeding lambs, I think was sort of where Harbro really started in amongst the Suffolks and what have you. So they know their trade in there. Finlay, a creep will be a dirty word to you, I guess. You won't see many of those up where you are.
Well, not here, but we do finish. We finish all the lambs, but not at home. I'm very lucky. I've got quite a good relationship with a good friend up in Keith, and we ship all the wethers, and the stirks go up there too. And we put the creeps up out there and finish them off a green keep as well. So it's not such a rosy year this year for selling hogs thus far. It's early yet, but I had some away last week, some cheviets away last week, and they were okay, but there needing to be a wee bit more to make it work for us. But it's Harbro finisher that we fill those feeders with too. So aye,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you talked about this year is different. It has been a different year. I think a different year for scanning round about the country, and a different year for the conditions of the animals in there. And that is a challenge, isn't it? Something you can't control, you know, pre-lambing anyway. And have we heard any results of how the scanning is round and about there with such a dry autumn that we had?
What I can gather down south, a wee bit tighter. There's definitely less lambs about down south anyway. There maybe not so many barons, but a lot of ewes that normally have twins are only got singles. But I think it's farmers are really good at thinking on their feet, and no 2 seasons the same. And you know, every time you get your sheep in, you should just always have your hand on them just to assess what they're doing. There's so many variables. And you could get caught out quite easily.
And be adaptable to change your system accordingly, and you the same there, Finlay.
Yeah, I would just say, sage counsel from Robert there. I would say, like, you know, I'm hearing mixed results here too. One guy locally here had his park ewes done, a very good scan. Another guy just down the road, not so good. Like, but you know, I always have to laugh. I'm very lucky. I've got a really good scanner here, Stuart Wright, and whenever I'm got my wee bit of paper looking at it, questioning my ability and my decisions, I say, what's it like being around the boot? And it says the same answer every year. The good guys are good and the bad guys aren't so good. But it's just, as Robert says, the good years are good, the bad years are bad. Sometimes you just can't put your finger on it. You know, you're working with livestock and you're working with nature, and there's maybe not always just an answer. So I think maybe don't question yourself too much. If you're doing the best you can, that's all you can do, you know.
Absolutely. And obviously challenging time. There's a lot of challenges at lambing time, as we all know, and twin lamb disease is one out there. Is there specific advice you can give to some of our viewers there, sort of how to prevent twin lambing disease?
Honestly, Andy, it's not something we have a lot of problems with. We tend to give our sheep as much pit silage as possible, and we try and make as good silage as we can. But no, I don't. Ill calcium's probably as good as anything for any sheep that's down, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And you single those out, Finlay, if you find anything that's down like that and you suspect a bit of twin lamb, you pull them on one side.
Yeah, generally for us, it would depend on the year. If we get a right kick in the back end, and you know, in about the springtime with bad weather, we've got to look out. But I've certainly seen a lot less of it. When you go into a system like we're on, you know, it takes sometimes a year or two maybe for the ewes just to learn exactly, you know, the buckets, and you'll get greedy ewes and you'll get some ewes that aren't quite so, you know, maybe a bit, you know, shy of the buckets. Like, so in saying that, I wouldn't always just say it's the ewes that shy of the buckets that go down, but as Robert says, make the best. I mean, we try and make the best kind of silage we can here, and we treat it all with the additive to help it and make it kind of sheep safe as well. And really that's all. Yeah, that's all we can do. But it's not. We don't get a massive problem with it, to be quite honest. And I think that's all down to, you know, the ewes are knowing where the buckets are and using them to their advantage. Like, you know.
See, with the free access minerals, Andy, you'll get a surge to start with, and the sheep will take a lot to start with, and then when they sort of level out, once they know and they'll just tick away. And as long as they're taking minerals all the time, there should be less risk.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. And obviously, once the lambs hit the ground there, colostrum, it's all about getting the milk in those early days. It's about getting used at milk. And again, Robert, that'll be something that both of you will take a huge record of to make sure that the milk are used. But do you keep colostrum on hand with your pedigrees? Do you drop a colostrum into every single one of them just as a fail-safe there, or do you just let them get on with it?
We just keep an eye on them, and as long as they're up and sucking within 20 minutes, or even quicker, I'm pretty confident they'll not need anything added. And quite often we would milk a few jugs at the start of lambing time off some of those singles just to have some in the freezer, but we do buy colostrum just in case we need it. But no, there's certainly no shortage of milk at lambing time, that's for sure.
And the same when you breed for it there, Finlay, that would be the same, but you keep some on hand, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we try and breed big swishy ewes with constitution, and I think if you do that, you've got the job in hand. But in saying that, you've got to have an insurance policy, a colostrum. It's a funny year. It's a funny thing actually. Just on the fact we finished the lambs, when we had that beast from the east there a few years ago, the ewes actually were okay. Our ewes managed to come through it not too bad. And I didn't notice a lot of bother with colostrum. The ewes were okay, but that year in the finishing lambs, I lost quite a lot more hogs at the grazing, and we couldn't just put our finger on it. They were inoculated and everything. And I spoke with the vet up there, and we just wondered if it was the colostrum quality at that stage coming out in these kind of 9-10 month old hogs that were, at that stage, and that's all we could put it down to. And touch wood, we've not had it again. But like I say, that was just a terrible year. But it was just maybe enough just to drop that colostrum intake in these lambs,
And a year to learn from as well, wasn't it, for all of us, for a lot of reasons, for that matter. And Robert, you talk about one thing probably Finlay doesn't have a problem with that you maybe will if you're talking about triplets and quads. So you got to have some pet lambs about you. And what, you drop all those into the market and get rid of them or knock them on the head, or have you got a system for looking after this?
We try and get as many twinned on as possible. Even if the ewes young enough and the lambs are even, I would leave them with triplets and try and give them the best field of grass there is, and just feed them a wee bit harder and for longer if we can. But there's no point in doing it if the lambs are uneven in size. If they're all the same size, we could get away with doing that. But we try and sell as many as we can. There's pet lambs, we'd keep a few, but we try not to if we can help it.
Well, the price of milk replacer, of course, that does makes it very expensive to rear a lamb these days on a bucket.
It's surprising how they do come eventually. If you look after those pet lambs, they're not cheap, but in this maybe year, to get them away early was this was a year to have them, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah, and as I said, that wouldn't be a problem with you there, Finlay. Another problem probably wouldn't be with you, would be mastitis. Would we see? I suppose that would be something you'd need to keep an eye on. I suppose at spawning time or right the way through.
No, it's not a massive issue. But when we take the twins down, I'm very lucky. I've got a kind of couple of guys help me with my grassland management here in the better parks, and we a guy Charlie Murray at Clyde Agri Seeds, another guy Sinclair Simpson, an Arcadian guy came with me through the farm advisory service, and we've invested a lot of money in reseeding the parts that we can reseed, and Charlie made a really good mix that suited to this area. The only issue I would say with that is if I've not got my stocking quite right, my ewes can whiles be a wee bit hefty at lambing, and that can whiles give you that maybe wee issue if you're not just on it to strip her off and that. Generally with older ewes, that year's cast. But and on the twin lamb front, we've got very few kind of triplets here, but we do. I'm quite adept at skinning the odd lamb if I've had a bit of bother that way. But I always remember what my old boss Alec Murray told me when I was working with him. He says, "If she didn't love her own, why would she love somebody else's?" so it stuck with me like that a wee bit too. But if she's standing over it, stamping their feet, you've got half a chance, I suppose. Right?
Yeah. Okay. And Robert, mastitis, I mean, okay, a different setup again there, big milky ewes there. You just dry them all off and make sure everything's bed right down?
Yeah, well, we tend to, our pedigree use, because we're weaning them in the peak of the summer, we actually use a dry cow tube to seal them off. And this year last year we tried it, and this year we're doing it again with using this Vimco, the mastitis vaccine, on our pedigree gimmers just. we just feel that because you can get the gimmers are used with single lambs, you can get them out fairly quickly out the shed in the spring. But a gimmer with twins that's maybe had triplets and you've taken one off her, she's probably quite lean, and you can't really get those sheep out to grass here until near the end of March, beginning of April possibly. And that's peak time for catching mastitis in the shed. So I would say, touch wood, I think it's worked so far. This vaccine, it's a kind of, I'm not saying it's something, usually if we can get them by the gimmer stage, there's not really too many problems. But we always keep our gimmers separate after the lamb, and it's the same with our commercials. We try and keep them in the gimmers in the different fields, because a ewe will always box out a gimmer when it comes to eating, and a gimmer that's nursing twins just can't get enough feed, basically. And if she starts to not get enough into her, you'll end up with lambs that are suck. You'll end up with orf on your teats, and you'll end up with mastitis. So there's a whole range of stuff you can do with your management of gimmers, the same as you do with your 2-year-old heifers. You've got to keep them separate and look after them in that first year, and then the following year they're hopefully integrated into your flock herd just the same.
Okay, and I know this is a lambing podcast, but we should talk generally about sheep though the whole year through. And obviously, once you get the lambs away there, it's about getting the ewes, managing the condition of the ewes through the years. And again, 2 different systems at different times of tupping there, about getting the ewes maybe down into a leaner condition and then bringing them back up there. And how does that work with you, Finlay? Do your sheep's conditions naturally follow the climate?
They do, Andy. We try and, for me, the secret, I think, is to try and get them spayed in as early into September as I can, and I give them their back end treatment then, actually, because we've got longer days, lighter days. So I give them a heap of ablutions then, and we kick them back out the hill, and it's amazing how they go in and do. They will probably, it's quite often at tupping time they can be pretty thick, but I'm not really too worried about that. If she's gone and done, she can't really be too hard. We're tupping a bit later anyway, so I'm sacrificing that lamb and rise, that big flush, just to keep her in right tune through the other side of the year, So yep.
And Robert, you said, although you said you are breeding to get more lambs and what have you, the secret of obviously of getting the sheep down into a poorer condition, then bringing them back up on a rising plane just when the tup goes in, and it's about bearing those sheep down hard in the summer, especially your pedigrees, getting them fetched back in condition to get as many lambs as you can.
We have some quite hard rocky bits that we can stick them on and keep them fairly tight, but our pedigrees, that is, but like our commercial flock, we don't really weren't too hard on them, because we're not really wanting any more than the lambs that we get. And okay, we are tupping them in good land, the best land we've got, but I'm just a wee bit wary about getting any more lambs. There is a sweet spot there, and the ewes only get 2 teats after all,
That's true, and you've only got so many buckets for those pet lambs, and so many you can twin back on. And let's move on to the lambs themselves. Then, I mean, you market your stock, Robert, obviously through the pedigree sales, as you mentioned earlier on, and it's about getting those lambs peak. You know exactly when your sale day is going to be, and you start everything. You time all your exactly to get your sheep ready for that sale, and your main market, obviously, for selling your best Texel lambs is Lanark, but you'll have a lot of Texel lambs to sell, across the country. And
it's incredible. We'll try and sell about 40 tup lambs a year, and it's incredible different areas of the country. We try to go down south. We've always went down south to sales, and different markets have different priorities. So it makes it easier if you've got a range of types of tup lambs to market them. You know which market's going to suit that particular sheep. But no, it's a busy time of year selling, but we try our hardest, and there's always the Texel breeders always have a good fun at the sales.
They do that. I was one myself once. I saw the light now, but I was one myself once. And your commercial side of it, a different thing. Obviously, this is the bigger numbers there, and have you got specific markets for that? Are you going on the hook? How are you marketing your commercial lambs, and when?
Well, as I say, all the ewe lambs were all tagged at birth, so we aim to sell maybe about 100 recipients a year to other breeders, and what doesn't make the grade will be hung up, or if they're exceptionally good-looking lambs, they'll go to the market. Really, it's just about a mixture of those three options, really, for our commercials.
And Finlay yourself, you'll have sales for draft ewe lambs at a certain time, or keeping some around for gimmers, but you'll kill some as well.
Yeah, we generally don't sell any ewe lambs. We keep them all through the winter. We qualify for the Uplands Hill lamb scheme here, so we generally keep all the ewe lambs, and we keep the better ones to sell as skimmers at Dalmally, and the rest of them just generally we hang them up along with our brothers in the spring, like, you know. Yep, so that's our mainstay with the sheep job. Like we sell a wee smatter in the tups at Fort William every year, but it's really just if we can pay the bar tab, like, you know, we're happy with that, like, you know. So.
Great, but you do, when you say you hang the lambs up, have you got specific buyers that you'll send them to on a regular basis, or are you talking marts again?
We've got quite a good relationship with Woodhead Brothers up in Turriff. We put most of the lambs up there, and we do sell some through the live ring too. My former employment, I've got to sell some through the live ring, otherwise I'd be getting kicked by everyone that sees me. But blackie lambs generally have to say, unless they're humdingers, really deserve to be generally do better hanging up, like, you know, for us, like, you know.
Yeah.
And Robert, we obviously saw a change in the world last couple of years there with COVID, and it certainly changed the way a lot of people do a lot of things, I think. And has the internet become, certainly in the pedigree side, is the internet now starting to become more of a tool and a sales gadget for you?
Yeah, there's certainly more and more people have been an online sale. Who would have thought of that a few years ago? But I'm very wary, to be fair. But although I have bought online, I'd be very wary of spending any serious amount of money without actually seeing the sheep in context with another sheep. But it's certainly we sell a bit of semen abroad, and the internet and Facebook has been very helpful for marketing semen and genetics around the world, really. So we're just moving with the times, really, aren't we?
I suppose we are, but pre-sale, I mean, you will obviously, not everybody can come to the farm and see the tups before they go to the sale. You will invite people around, and top breeders will come and have a mooch. But you do put your videos together now and these great photographs and that, just trying to get yourself a little bit of an edge when you get to the sales.
Yeah, I don't make too good a job of them before sale time in the videos and the photographs, so that when they actually turn up to the sale, they actually get quietly surprised that they're better than the picture, because there's nothing worse than getting a major disappointment when you turn up at a sale.
That's called expectation management. That's why we didn't big up this seminar too much before we got there, just in case it wasn't great. But you're doing well, guys. You're doing a great job. And let's say the social media really is something that's taken the breed forward. We have had a few questions on it. If you folks out there have put your questions in there, they've been monitored, and a few of them have sent them to us. So not many. So there's a few more questions you guys want to send in there. Anybody wants to know anything from these two very experienced shepherds, that's fine. So I think we're gonna move on now to the questions and answers section there, and let's just look what I've got here. I've got a question from Ross Robertson. This is for you, Robert. With Texels, do you make a lot of decisions based on EBVs, or are you looking more at pedigrees? And that's an open conversation there we could spend all night on, but let's see how you go.
Yeah, well, you've got to have a balance, and figures are just another trait. Character's a trait, but I think as time goes on, when you look at the impact figures have had in the dairy, the pig industries, and the genetic gain is quite incredible. But there's a lot of different factors involved in breeding sheep, with environmental issues and the type of land and the height you're at. But there's certain traits that farmers in this area are certainly looking for. And if you've no figures, you don't know what you've got. But at least if you've got some sort of EBVs there to work on, and there's certain traits that you think you could improve. I know, for example, we we, up until 2015, had never really exported many sheep abroad, but it turned out, we didn't know it, but we turned out we had actually a tup that was very high litter size EBV, and that was something that these particular breeders in Europe were wanting. And if we didn't have EBVs or figures, it would have been a sale I would have missed out on, that's for sure.
And certainly something you've been recording your sheep for a long time. I'm very aware of that. So you will have some good figures, and the figures getting more and more accurate as the years goes on. And the figures are coming into the blackie side of it as well now. There, Finlay, is it something you're starting to take a bit of notice of recording figures?
Not personally here, no. The only figures I look at once I've seen the tup in the flesh is the postcode, and if it's from a harder area than where I'm from, I make a decision as to why it looks the way it looks, and I use stockmanship to decide whether it's been built with feed or whether it's just a natural doer. So that's my kind of, generally I've got a rule of thumb. I generally don't buy tups from places that I think are too much better than here. We're quite hard here. We've got a good bit of in buy too, but the hill's pretty hard, so we need them to go out and do. So there's generally a lot of the tups that I'm buying are Perthshire bred tups or Argyll tups, and so pretty much that's the kind of the general rule of thumb. Like the postcode is the figures I look for.
Okay, and we do have Jill Hunter here in the background. Jill, if you'd like to show yourself and make yourself known, I'd love you to join in these Q&As as well. Again, well-recognised blackie family. Hi, Jill.
Yeah, what to say when it comes to blackies and EBVs.
Okay. Well, I've got a question here from a Mr. Aitken. I'm not sure this might be your boss at the chairman of the Texel Society or not, but Mr. Aitken is asking, how do you see the Texel as a breed versus the Suffolk? There we go, Robert's question for you.
Oh, that's a very good question, isn't it? Well, I think all breeds have got their place, and I'm not going to decry another breed against our breed, but the Texel has gained its share of the marketplace because of their ability to get up and suckle quickly. They're easy fleshing, and they've got plenty of cover on the tops of their heads. The white hair in any animal is important, and that's all about that birth coat that they often talk about. We need to make sure that we've got sheep that have got plenty of coat and plenty of hair on their head, and they can stand a cold morning. And that's where the Texel has really scored over the years. And I've also got cleaner backsides as well. That's okay. If you asked 100 commercial guys, that's what one of the things they would say is that the backsides are always cleaner.
Okay, fair enough. That's answered that one there, Mr. Aiken. And a question from Alan Fotheringham. How many weeks pre-lambing do you scan, Finlay?
Generally, we'll scan kind of beginning middle of March, depending on weather. It's very difficult sometimes to get out to the hill in that time. So a month 6 weeks pre-lambing is generally our rule here. I used to leave it a bit later actually, and we used to actually work the Heptavac Jag, just after the scan, just for ease of management. But my scanner was always kind of struggling. Well, he wasn't struggling, but he was always advising me to make an easier day for him if we scanned a bit earlier. So we've taken it back a bit earlier. And he, to be honest, I was wrong in leaving it so late, because I see a big difference in my twin bearing yows in August, September month that year. They've mended because I've been better to them a wee bit earlier. So yeah. So.
You can go with that, Robert.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole cycle. It's a 1 year cycle, really, the sheep management, and you've got to be planning ahead all the time.
And a question from Susie Crera, and this is for you, Finlay, and this is a good question, I have to say. Is there anything you can do in particular to try and encourage single lambs at Tupping Town?
Oh, I'm not really sure. I don't know. I couldn't honestly tell you. For me, I think we're just, if we get them in lamb, that's a good start, really. But but to try and, no, I don't think so. If you bear them up and don't be too good to them and tuck them on the hill, you'll certainly reduce the lamb. And we only tuck the first cycle in the fields, and the second cycle we put them back out to the hill, and we work a tupping ratio in the packs about 50 to 60 yows per tup. But when they go to the hill, I can increase it a wee bit to about 35 to 40. And again, that's really just to look after the tups a bit better too. And it's a big scalp of ground they've got to cover. So to try and make them just to bring the twins out of them, I'm not just sure how you would go about that, to be quite honest. Like, you know, but,
no, true. There's a question here for Jill. What's the difference between a bucket and a block there? So tell us the main differences that we expect to see there.
Yeah, so Finlay was talking about using blocks earlier. So a block is really simply, it's compressed compound feed. So when you can't get to the hill with the snacker, how do you actually get a decent amount of nutrition into the ewes? So that's what blocks are. And then buckets are just pretty concentrated with minerals, a little bit of feed value, especially in like the vitality buckets, just to help top up ewes and complement compound feed. So if you think about twin lamb disease coming into lambing, it's making sure we're getting enough energy actually into those ewes and in a form that they can actually use. So for example, vitality there's got quite a lot of propylene glycol in it. So it's a nice wee top up of energy that doesn't have to be mobilized by the ewe's liver. So you're helping you're reducing the risk of twin lamb disease as well as not adding to the problem.
Okay, and another nutritional question to Finlay actually is, what is it, somebody's asked, what is it, Helen Simpson has asked, what is it that you add to your silage to make it better?
We used to use a product called EcoSile, but we actually use the product that Harbro sell now through Davy Allen at Perth there, and I can't remember the name. I think it's Silos. Is it Sile Safe? Safe Sile? Safe Sile. Is it Safe Sile? So we use it, and our contractor comes in. We don't have a lot of the kit ourselves, but he just comes in with a tank and applies it as he's making the silage. And it just gives you that extra confidence that it's going to be safe if there is a wee bit of mold heap or whatever in the bale. And I see very little mouldy bales here, and it makes them, I think it just makes them a bit more palatable as well for the ewes like too. So I think it's I don't know what it costs. I think it's about 70 or 80 pence a bale roughly. I think I could be wrong in that. I'm just doing it from memory, but it's not a big cost to the cost of the silage operation, like, you know.
Okay. And got a question from Stuart Kennedy, and he says he agrees with you there, Robert. So somebody's not asking a question, but is agreeing alongside you, saying that keeping a ewe to 6, 7, 8 years old, if she's got a good mouth and good feet and udder, that's the route to longevity, to breeding those onto them, is it?
Yeah. Well, and without proper records, you can't make decisions like that, And if you get a chance to don't breed off the singles, you will increase your lambing percentage. It's not difficult, Yeah.
And a question on boluses, or both of you really, do you bolus your ewes?
Yep, we give our pedigrees, Selenium Cobalt, twice a year, pre-tup and pre-lambing, and our commercials just get it pre-tupping. We're very light ground here, and we're extremely cobalt deficient, and we actually I've been doing a lot of soil sampling, and with the aim of trying to get our fields, the cobalt selenium levels up a bit in our fields, so that we don't need to use boluses going forward. But we're not just at that point yet. Okay,
and Finlay, do you bolus? Do you see a difference with boluses?
We don't actually bolus, but we work a mineral drench here 3 times a year. I worked out, it's the people that supply Starline there, I worked out the cost of the bolus to retention of the minerals, and it just worked out slightly cheaper for us here to just give them a three drenches a year, So generally it's pre-lambing, clipping time, and pre-tupping. So yeah, that's the only thing we do when they come in off the hill. We just give them their drench then, because they've had everything else they're looking at in the back end at spinning, So yeah.
Okay, and I've had a question for you, Robert, I think from David Ford, and he said, I breed pedigree Suffolks. This is one of your pals. I breed pedigree Suffolks, and should I show off my young lambs that catch my eye on Facebook, or should I keep my cards close to my chest and wait till sale time?
Oh, I think if your lambs are looking well, you should always show them off, because although it sometimes can have the counter effect, and you get quite depressed if somebody's lambs look so much better than yours. And it's quite funny. There's a guy I'm friends with on Facebook in South Wales, and he's sort of doing his first cuts of silage before our sheep are even out the fields. And I told him it's not good for the people up here's mental health seeing you doing things like that.
Yeah, well, of course, mental health something we all should consider. But I hear what you're saying there. If you can get if you breed them good and they're young, get everybody in to see them, and you do your own marketing every way you can, and that's half of our business, isn't it? To do that marketing. I've got a question from Natalie here, who just wants to Finlay, I think, or no, was it you, Robert, to just reiterate what that vaccination that you're giving about mastitis. I think that's picked interest of a few people.
Vimco, it's called. It's not that new to the market, but I think dairy cattle have been using a form of it for quite a few years now. Vimco.
Vimco, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's used quite a bit in dairy sheep as well, would be what it's made for.
Okay. Okay. Finlay, Sarah Jane Forbes would like to know about predators. Which predators cause the most problems out there, the hill, and have you seen any changes in this over the years, and maybe with different weather, different climates?
Yeah, we have an issue with foxes here, and we have an issue with badgers. Obviously, we can control the foxes. We can't control the badgers, obviously. But we have. It's one of these things that we don't persecute the fox, but we have to keep an eye on things on that front. We also have a bit of bother. I've not seen it just as much as some of the guys further west are seeing it. But one of my big worries is there's more yows coming off the hills up in the west, northwest there. I think we'll see a bit more sea eagle predation here. We do have sea eagles here, and I've seen pluckings out in the hill, not enough to give me I could say that was predated by the sea eagle out, and I've not seen that, but I've seen pluckings of wool, and I've seen them here, and it just gives me a wee bit worry that as the sheep stocks are going off in some of the west, and some good stocks of yows, some good proper hill stocks of yows are going off, that they might have to start coming further afield. It's an easy prey. A young blackie lamb out in the hill, or even an older blackie lamb out in the hill, so that's a bit of a worry. But that would be our biggest. We have a wee bit of raven issue here too, and we have to get licenses to deal with that as well. It's very well regulated, so that's our biggest issue. But again, it's all to be done holistically, and with a thought of the environment round about us. We're trying to work with it, not against it.
Okay. Okay.
Well, the amount of trees that's getting planted, Finlay, up your way, there'll be. You would think there'll be more cover for predators, wouldn't you?
You're dash right, Robert. And I'll tell you, it's we've got a lot of forestry and land, Scotland woods here, and traditionally they used to let us. Well, they used to do the dens themselves, and now they're dead against any dens being looked at in their properties, and it's just a reservoir of problems. But therein lies a longer podcast about rural issues from.
At least we've not got wolves, Finlay. At least we've not got wolves.
I wasn't going to mention the wolves.
There's a lot of guys round about Aberfeld. They have a bother with beavers, but they're not taking lambs yet.
No.
Okay, and you mentioned Finlay about when the sheep come in at the back end, you give them potions of all this sort of thing. And Sharon Milne is saying, do you heptabac everything out there on the hill?
Yeah, our yows are in the heptavac system. So that's in we give them in the heptavac, and as their 2 jags as yow hogs, as they go away to the wintering, they get their 2 jags, and I actually give them a booster when they come home from the wintering as well, and then after that they're on the system, and it's just they get their jag pre-lambing, and the lambs, just. We give all the lambs getting overvac at marking time, and milk clipping as well, just to give them cover. But I've noticed that we're finishing the lambs. We're having to kind of do that because the lambs are going into quite clean ground, but they're still going into ground up north. I've seen other sheep, and when these young lambs come off the hill, they're quite naive to a lot of things. So if I can introduce as much as I can here, it's a wee bit of cost, but I think it reduces your mortality burden at the other end. Yep, the yows are on the heptavac system. Yep.
Okay. And a question for Jill there: are we seeing a change in the nutritional requirements for sheep? I mean, you guys are developing products all the time and moving on. There is there becoming a change in the breeding system to the better, obviously?
I think there's always changes going on, isn't there? We would see that as genetics improve, certainly on the cattle side of things, we would see more of a focus on feed efficiency, and you would expect that that will follow more so into sheep as well. So just making sure that what the products that we have are right for the job that we're trying to do. And Joe Robert's system is very different to Finlay's, and making sure that we have something that suits both. And I suppose the advice almost that goes with the two of those is just as important as the actual feed itself.
Sure. And advice is something I'm going to ask, and both of you now. I'll probably start with you, Robert. There is, if you could give one piece of advice to a young shepherdess, both starting out in the business there in their careers, what would that advice be? Just
go for it. Follow your dreams. Don't follow anybody else. Do your own thing. There's no point in doing the same as everybody else. You'll not beat the rest by being like the rest. That was my motto. So, yeah. A little bit of advice I'm going to give is make sure you get your feed bins cleaned out before you put your feed in them. We had an issue the last couple of years with an old wooden feed bin, and I'll tell you, it's got to be spotless clean before we took the panel off it, and it was really dirty inside. And but that's slightly different from what you were asking. But yes.
Finlay, you've got about a minute there to give some sound advice to our young breeders and young listeners out there getting into the sheep business.
Oh, geez, well, I don't know if there's any silver bullet for success, but I think if you get up in the morning and work, and put a shift in, you're bound to get there. And the old Jim Wilkin that used to be up at Rayfin, up in the Bucky Road, one of the hardiest lads I ever knew, he said to me once, he says, never talk about your victories because you distance your friends, and never talk about your defeats because you bore them. And I think there's something to be taken in that. Like, I think if you're doing well, keep it under your bonnet and just glide along, canny. And if you're not doing well, speak about it, but maybe don't speak about it too much. And the other thing I would say, just as a caveat to that, is if one thing I would say to any young lad is say yes to as much as you can, take as much experience and opportunity as you can. But if you see somebody that's maybe struggling a wee bit, just help them, and then you judge them and criticise them. Well, many folk have wee issues and struggles, and just give them a hand, and it'll make you feel far better than thinking they're making a shite job of something. Everyone's had wee spells and dropped the ball. Help them pick it up, and you'll feel far better than joining the rest of the boys saying what on earth he's making of that. Yeah.
That's very sound advice there, Finlay. Very sound advice. You concur with that one as well, Robert, I guess.
It's all about the journey, Andy, not the destination.
That's very true, and a great journey that it is, and a great journey we've had this evening as well. And I'm really pleased to speak to you guys. I hope we've answered your questions that have been sent in there, and I hope that panelists here have given you a good insight into the way their business is run, and we've all taken some advice. And I think the best advice I could give to anybody, although I'm not still in the sheep business, is take some advice. So listen to people that have been there, listen to people that know, and you've got two of those guys right here in front of you doing a fantastic. We've got three of those guys who's got Jill. There's nothing that Jill doesn't know about nutrition too, so and nothing she doesn't know about sheep. She's from one of the top Blackie farming families herself, breeding families herself in the Blackie trade. So thank you very much everybody for listening in tonight, and thanks to Harbro for hosting this webinar, and good luck to you guys there getting back into the lambing shed, and hope you all have a good season, and we'll see you all at the sales.
Thanks very much, Andy. Fair enjoyed it.
Thank you, everybody.
Great stuff. Wish everybody the best of lambing as well. Cheers.
Yeah.
Okay.